Another very harrowing event, also in the book of Acts, was regarding worshippers in Ephesus of the goddess Diana, which is the same goddess is known in Greek as Artemis, someone who we'll be talking about shortly. The whole town basically was devoted to the worship of Diana. When Paul and others came in preaching the gospel, many turned instead to Christ and caused a major revolt, particularly by the idol makers, which were the people who were making money off of the support of worship of her. And they brought the people there into a citywide chaos of wrath. The word wrath is used there, thymos, which is described from that passage as a passion, angry heat, glow ardor, wine of passion, which either drives the drinker mad or kills him with its strength. So that's the definition from Strong's Concordance of the word used there. We're not talking about just a general run-of-the-mill anger, something that was a rage that would either drive someone mad or kill the person because of this. So I think there was something spiritual going on. And those in your audience who are familiar with Pastor Russ Dizdar and his discussion about an upcoming Black Awakening where massive numbers of people are going to have possibly submerged demonic personalities called forth, have been placed for a future day or hour. Their kind of activity of chaos sounds similar to what happens in this passage. And in this discussion of Diana, they mention that an image of her that was in their temple there locally had fallen from heaven. So they had this idea of her being in the heavens and falling down into the temple itself. And I just want to tell your listeners to keep these elements in mind because they're going to be cited again. Later in Revelation 18, there's a very, very important passage that many people gloss over, Bible teachers and others. In that passage, if you read it, you will find very clearly that the kings of the earth and the great merchants of the earth conspire together, and it says they do sorcery, and the word used there is pharmakia, which is the use of drugs to control the activities of the world, and it says through this they deceive the nations of the earth, which is a very, very powerful passage and describes a lot of what is talked about on internet radio shows today about the deception of our world systems and institutions over the populace, over their control of food and drugs and things like this. Well, that's right out of the pages of the Bible, I believe, and I think this passage makes it clear that there is a consortium of government officials as well as people that are in the business, the commercial business, and they find it to their mutual advantage of control to make use of sorcery, which involves the use of drugs and also through dark spiritual powers, and the net effect is they're able to deceive large portions of the world public in their process of this communication. Now, just going into some details of some of these chemicals that we're talking about, some of the more common ones, and these chemicals would probably be best described by the term entheogens, which are drugs which do something to your psychosis, your spirit, to enable you to overcome any barriers to make direct contact with spirits in the spirit world. And some of the natural substances include something like, I believe it's pronounced psilocybin. It's basically known as magic mushrooms. It's the ingredient in the hallucinogenic mushrooms. We have another chemical called scopolamine, which is also enclosed in chemicals like, or plants, natural growing plants like belladonna, henbane, witch's herb, and even something called angel's trumpets, which is very ironic given a later reference we're going to make here. DMT and its use in a blended form in ayahuasca tea made by the shamans in the Amazon area. And then we have mescaline, which comes from peyote and similar sources like this in Central America. Now, there are man-made chemicals. We have not been satisfied with the natural entheogens. Man has decided to make his own more concentrated versions, and some of these are things like LSD, chemical DMX, which I'll mention more just in a moment, and even commonplace alcohol in certain cases does a very effective role as an entheogen. Now, just to comment on two of these, dextromethorphan, or DMX, Believe it or not, it's just used as the key ingredient in common cough suppressants. If you go to the drugstore and look for your cough suppressants, they're going to have a DMX, DM symbol typically on them. Unfortunately, according to news reports that are out, it is widely misused as a psychotropic drug by at least 3.1 million Americans. And that's just young Americans that are using this very common over-the-counter drug, taking it in portions that will actually create some kind of spiritual contact. And the reports I have said that they've documented entity contacts, out-of-body experiences, and other paranormal events by use of this simple chemical that we have in our own drug cabinets. Now, scopolamine was used actually in early forms of Percodan, and now it's being used for various depression drugs right now. So it's a common use for this. It was used by shamans in their burundanga plants, plant where they used it for their contact with the spirit. It is now considered, its usage is a virtual epidemic in Colombia, in similar places right now, and it's actually been used as a robbery device where people will be slipped this drug and actually be robbed or have other things done to them without their memory, where they lose their memory of it. And it's been described that when people use it recreationally, it will create what they call realistic psychic events. So not just a simple hallucination of my head deceived me on what I saw, but something much more realistic. And this particular chemical has traditionally been used by witches and sorcerers to see their gods. So these kind of key roots and plants, like we referred to, that the early angels taught mankind, has been used since then, this information preserved for them to make their spirit contacts as well. Now, one I'd like to focus on a little bit is one called dimethyltryptamine, or better known DMT. DMT is present and naturally occurring in plants in the Amazon basin area. It's very popular with shamans in that area, and they make it in something called ayahuasca tea, and this maximizes the effectiveness in it. Now, this particular chemical is made in various parts of the body. Some have theorized that it's actually produced in the human pineal gland, which we'll speak about in just a moment, but in any case, it's made within the body. Unfortunately, well, or fortunately, however you see it, there are other enzymes that are actually in your gastrointestinal tract that will actually quickly dissipate its presence in the body, and these are called, I believe, monoamine oxidase enzymes, or MAO. And what happens is you need to take something called an MAOI, or MAO inhibitor, chemical that will actually stop these enzymes from breaking it down, and that's in fact what is put in ayahuasca tea. The other ingredients that are added do this MAOI function of inhibiting the breakdown of it and allow it to go through your body and your brain for even a multi-hour mystical experience. And DMT is one particular chemical that has earned a reputation for very reliable contact of the spirit world. Virtual 100% incidence of a deep spirit contact with taking the chemical, and usually within seconds for many cases such as intravenous use. Just to give you one example of what a DMT experience would be like, there was a National Geographic magazine columnist that went to the Amazon to, quote, experience DMT and take it along with the shamans in this ayahuasca tea. And she had stated in the article that she basically was an atheist, so she had a lot of skepticism about these spiritual aspects. But what happened was when she actually took it in their little circle where they pass it around and take it, she said she experienced, and this is just a summary, she was falling down this deep chasm or abyss and surrounded by souls that were crying out to her, that were reaching out with their arms and crying out and asking, pleading for help, that she would get them out of where they were stuck or kept. And she landed in the bottom of this pit and saw 3 thrones that were enthroned with figures on them, and she was absolutely terrified for her life. She could sense the evil and hate, and they said that you are doomed here, you'll never leave, there is no hope, there's no way out of here.